So if we were to continue with the decks from the Wisdom, Sea and Sky, we've got Kingdra EX. Now, most definitely an interesting one, and to be honest, an overlooked one. Now, do I think this deck is going to be in the top echelons of cards? Probably not. With the Mega Evolutions coming in, it's going to be very interesting to see where these EX comes from and what we sort of play with as such. Now, Kingdra has got this Stormy Prison. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat once you utilize this attack. Meaning, if you are going against a Fire type, you're doing a 110 on the damage, which is always going to be perfect, but it has got a lot of weakness to it. The electric energy is an absolute headache when you come up against it, and I do think if you build this deck with the sole intentions of Kingdra being the attacker, because it's a stage 2 as well, you're going to find it very interesting to try and kind of get away from it, really. You're going to have to really put your eggs in one basket here. Now, obviously, with Kingdra, you obviously have Horsey, who can do the hook with 1 energy for 30, and Seadra can do 2 for 50, which is pretty good. I mean, they've both got necessarily very moderate HP and decent attacks. Kingdra with the 170 is quite nice for the HP, but it can get flopped pretty quickly. It's a very interesting one to see. Now, I've gone over to Pokemeta. This is the only deck that I could find of a current build-up. The Rare Candy makes sense, and I was trying to figure out which partner you'd want with this. Because you always go, when it comes to the water types, you look at your Articunos, you look at your Greninjas for the bench damage, and most definitely them two options are very nice. Articuno more so than Greninja, because you don't particularly want to have two-stage energies and evolutions in your deck at once. That's going to be the biggest problem for this deck, and that's where I kind of draw up the blank. Now, if we go over to all of the water types that are available, I've gone with water types and colorless to see which ones you could go with. I must admit, Politoed not looking too bad, but in general you kind of look at your stage 2s, you see the Blastoises, which are always fantastic. You obviously your Poliwraths, and as you go further down you're kind of looking at a bit of Kingler. The only one that I could think of as a secondary basis would be like a Starmie, would always be fantastic. But that's where the problem comes of, you are almost taking away Kingdra as a secondary option more so than a main option. And when you do utilizing a stage 2, you need to make sure that that is the first option. If you are putting all your eggs in that basket of having that stage 2 and having a stage 1 as the kind of like your main attacker, it basically means Kingdra's useless for that fact. Unless you were kind of taking that big jump and not having any Seadras in there and just going Horsey Kingdra and praying that you get a rare candy. As much as I would definitely only have one Seadra like this deck is having, because you got to at least have one just in case. The rare candy, both of them could be the back 2 on the deck. You're pretty stuffed if you don't have a Seadra in the deck. So that makes a lot of sense not to kind of buy battle passes and even coins from 100 all the way up to 58,000. There's also items and boosted available on Pokemon Go. When it comes to Pokemon Pocket, there's Pokegold that you can buy from the site, and also items such as trade-in from any stars from 1 all the way up to 3, and potentially more in the future. Eldorado also offer money back guarantee and also 24/7 live support. If you need any further recommendations, Trustpilot have plenty of Eldorado reviews that you can scan through and just check that this site is for you. And before you check out, make sure that you use the code POKEJT before you check out for 5% off your orders. Completely kill out Seadra there. We also have a couple of others, 60 HP and 70 for the 20 water gun, and this attack does 50 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Again, pretty decent, but 3 energies, 1 more than what Kingdra truly needs, meaning that you might not power up anything else. Articuno is always been a fan favorite. It's an incredible Pokemon, but again is a main attraction rather than the secondary. A Greninja, again, you'd want to go with a rare candy. Again, would you prefer to go with the Greninja and then go with something else like an Articuno that you can throw all your energies into? I do think that that would be the better option. When you then look at the kind of colourless sort of side, again, you could go with your easy hitters to start with. A Kangaskhan is always going to be fantastic with that Dizzy Punch, especially if you do mix it in with someone like Will. But again, it's going to be an interesting one to see. Is it truly worth doing? You could have someone like a Snorlax thrown in there and have him with the rollout and potentially building them up as you've already done Kingdra. So it's quite an interesting deck to see if it would work. In terms of what kind of items and tools you've got, they actually didn't put any tools in here other than the actual giant cape, which again makes sense. I mean, you've got the 190 on the HP there. You could utilize both for that as well. You have got Lily, which is healing 60 damage from obviously a stage 2. I think that's a fantastic one to have. And they have Iono. Again, you could switch between them. You could swap out Iono for like a Cyrus. Obviously, you've got Sabrina in there as well. It is a deck that will be most definitely KO'd by Electric. You definitely have a solid chance against Fire, especially if you do get the Kingdra in there straight away. I think that is a non-negotiable. You definitely should be able to get that out of the way, especially with Horsey doing 50 on against a Fire on the first, or the second turn technically. That's going to be fantastic. So it's an interesting deck to say the least. I'm kind of more in the mid category with this. I am very interested to see where the Mega Revolutions fit in, and if they do boost up any of these decks, and it's what I want to come back to once we get into that later this fall. So let me know if you've managed to run a little bit of a Kingdra. I like to try different decks, and obviously the one that I really want to try but it just doesn't seem to be worth it is the free dogs. Hopefully we do get an EX version of them at some point.